Good morning and welcome to our forum. Today we will be working with John and our other cast of characters on Revelation 17.
Revelation 17 is a New Testament chapter describing the vision of the great harlot and the scarlet beast. The harlot, symbolizing the apostate church, is depicted as sitting on a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, representing worldly powers and blasphemy against God. This chapter highlights the spiritual corruption and eventual judgment of the harlot, emphasizing the contrast between the faithful church and the apostate church. The imagery and symbolism in Revelation 17 vividly portray the struggle between good and evil and the ultimate triumph of God's justice.
Listen now as John reads Revelation 17.
Please follow along in your Bibles while I read Revelation 17, verses 1 to 5 in the New King James Version. Verse 1, Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters. Verse 2, With whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Verse 3, So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
How would you interpret these 3 verses?
We will endeavor to answer the following 7 questions for Revelation 17.
We'll begin with the verses 1 through 3 and these questions. Verse 1. Who is the great harlot mentioned in Revelation 17:1? And what does she symbolize? Verse 2. What is the significance of the kings of the earth committing fornication with the harlot in Revelation 17:2? And third, how does the scarlet beast described in Revelation 17:3 relate to the harlot, and what does it represent? What's going on here? Dave, any ideas?
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for this forum. I will give you my answer to your questions and also my thoughts on Revelation 17, verse 1. Revelation chapter 12, verses 1 to 6, describes a vision of a woman clothed with the sun, a red dragon, and a male child. The dragon tries to devour the child, but God takes up the child. The woman escapes into the wilderness, where she is cared for by God for 1,160 days. The harlot is seen sitting on a scarlet beast, symbolizing her alliance with worldly powers and her spiritual corruption. Question 1. The harlot is the apostate church, contrasting it with the faithful church depicted as a woman in Revelation 12, 1 to 6. Question 2. The harlot is seen sitting on a scarlet beast, symbolizing her alliance with worldly powers and her spiritual corruption.
Revelation 17, 1, the many waters, Jeremiah 51:13, Rev 17:15 explains the sense. The whore is the apostate church, just as the woman, Revelation 12:1-6, is the church while faithful. Satan, having failed by violence, tries to successfully to seduce her with the allurements of the world. Unlike her Lord, she was overcome by this temptation. Hence, she is seen sitting on the scarlet-colored beast, no longer the wife, but the harlot, no longer Jerusalem, but spiritually Sodom, Revelation 11:8. My comments on Revelation 17, verse 2. Verse 2 is a continuation of what the angel told John. May I point out that in verse 2, the judgment and spiritual fornication is described in Revelation 18, 2 and 3. It is not limited to Rome, but encompasses the entire apostate church, including Roman, Greek, and Protestant branches that have strayed from their devotion to Christ. Dave, do you have anything to add to my commentary?
I agree that the great harlot represents a false religious system. It probably will be a one-world religion that has influenced many kings and inhabitants of the earth. This system is characterized by spiritual fornication, symbolic idolatry, leading people away from the true faith. Reference to 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. The judgment of this system is assured, highlighting the ultimate failure of all false religions that oppose God.
In verse 3, we see John carried away in the Spirit into the wilderness, a desert, where he sees a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. This beast was full of blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman in scarlet represents a false religious system, and the beast symbolizes satanic worldly power. The wilderness setting contrasts the desolation around her with her apparent splendor, highlighting the emptiness of her allurements.
There's a lot to absorb here, guys. Let me see if I can do a little bit of comparing here and see if perhaps we can get a better understanding of what you said. First, we'll look at the focus of these 3 verses. Both commentators focus on the symbolism of the woman attire. Let's look first at focus. Both commentators focus on the symbolism of the woman's attire, the golden cup, and the name on her forehead. They emphasize her role in the spiritual corruption and persecution of God's people. Now, as to the interpretation, Fawcett emphasizes the contrast between the faithful church and the apostate church, while Guzik highlights the historical and symbolic significance of Babylon. Now, pictures are drawn by both commentators, who agree on the shocking and intense nature of the vision as it reflects in John's amazement. Let's begin now with Revelation 17, verse 3. We begin with Aaron, who contrasts the harlot's contentment in the moral wilderness which the faithful church is longing for the city to come. The scarlet beast she rides represents world power and blasphemy against God, while Dave emphasizes the judgment of the harlot is assured and that her ultimate failure is inevitable, highlights the symbolic nature of the harlot's judgment and its significance in context of Revelation. Let's move on now to the next 3 verses which will complete this section of Revelation 17. Verse 4. The woman was arrayed in purple, scarlet, and adorned with gold and with precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Verse 5. And on her forehead was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abomination of the earth. Verse 6. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. Dave, could you start off with your interpretation?
I would be happy to, Bill. In verse 4, the woman's luxurious attire and the golden cup symbolize her seductive and corrupting influence. The cup, filled with abominations, represents her spiritual and moral corruption. Verse 5 continues with more detail. The name on her forehead symbolizes her identity and role in leading people away from God. The historical and symbolic significance of Babylon as a center of idolatry and opposition to God. The woman's persecution of the saints and martyrs signifies her intense hatred and violence against God's people. I also noticed John's amazement at the vision, reflecting the gravity of the situation. Aaron, can you give us your insight?
Dave, I agree with your interpretation, but I would like to add the contrast between the faithful church and the apostate church. Also, in verse 6, the woman is described as being drunk with the blood of the saints and martyrs, highlighting her persecution of God's people. Take note of John's astonishment at the sight, reflecting the shocking nature of the vision.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'd like to cut it off here in order to keep these videos around 10 minutes in length. But for those who are watching this video, we would surely appreciate you showing up in person at Fellowship Bible Church, Middleburg, Florida, each Sunday at 9:30 a.m. for our forum. Hope to see you then. God bless.
you.